it's instant gratification now.
Yeah.
And it's the same way I see it with in real estate. You know, people buy leads, or they do mailers, or they do all different different
I
kinds
want a
of
lead right now so I can make a sale right now, rather than building real relationships and saying, this is what I'm going to do for my career for 30 years. So if I shake enough hands in the first 10 years, I can probably kick my feet up and all the business will come to me for the next 20.
Real business owner.
Whatever your situation is currently is not your forever situation.
That's really what real business owners is, man. Like, we don't care where you come from, where are you going?
Our goal and our job is to reduce the mistakes that you have to make or the money that you have to lose.
You want to be an entrepreneur, you want to be successful, don't give up.
You learn, adjust, and continue to move forward.
Welcome back to the Real Business Owners Podcast with myself, Trevor Cowley. Kel's still enjoying California with his family. He took the whole month of July off to kind of decompress, switch things up. And, some people take vacations for 5 days or 7 days. Kel's
or
like,
0 days.
Yeah, or 0 day. I'm not a vacation guy, but no, I think he enjoys it down there, and he's like kind of like looking for places to buy, right? To where he can have like a home down there and, maybe make that transition. He's always loved California and wanted to live down there. So I think he's like dipping his toe in the water, right? And saying, do I like that? And when you dip your toe in the water and you're at the beach, you're going to probably like it. So he'll be shopping soon. But I have a guest with me today, handsome bastard. I enjoy hanging out with him because he always laughs at my jokes, even though they're not the best. So
You're a funny guy.
Yeah, I can be. Dude, McCrae Hepler has gone, from my understanding, from the door-to-door industry is where you started out, is what I heard, right?
Yes.
To now getting to the point where you own your own business, Eagle Gate Title. You are kind of the face of Southern Utah in terms of like breaking news when somebody's breaking ground, right? Like when new businesses come into town, things like that. And so you've done a great job of kind of marketing yourself as that type of an individual to give good information. Obviously, one, it helps with networking and getting to know, business owners and things like that. But it also gets your name out there and your business's name out there. So it's just a unique way of investing into marketing without fully saying, hey, like work with us, right?
Right.
Being the source of good information still has the ability to benefit your business, right?
Draws people,
And Corey McNeil, that's been on our podcast, that kind of runs our whole media department. You're his nephew, and he said, hey, you got to have McCrae on. You got to have McCrae on. He's been saying that forever, right?
Well,
and he says you got to
finally have the opportunity.
Yeah, he says you got a great story, and so I'm excited to kind of like, peel back the onion, right? And get deep into it. And when you peel back an onion, sometimes tears are shed, bro.
Hey,
you know
I don't
what
know
I mean?
if I don't know if tears will come with you.
Yeah,
we'll see.
I don't cry. Hey, I
tears
got
of
water.
laughter. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe
But
that.
we're not talking about you today, so maybe not. It's
I
usually
don't
when we're
know.
talking about
I mean,
you.
I think we should keep the focus over on this side of the table, but that's just me.
We can.
But yeah. No, for real. Tell me obviously you're a Southern Utah boy, right?
Yeah.
Like you grew up in Southern Utah.
Born and raised here.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Obviously did all the running around, as a kid, probably riding bikes, all the fun
Absolutely.
stuff. When did it start getting to the point where you were like, all right, I like money, right? Was it 8 years old, 10 years old, 15, because everyone kind of has the young hustler story. And then I want to kind of hear it progress. Like, I don't know if you went to college, you did or didn't, if it was a mistake or if it was a great thing for you, what the benefits were, pros and cons, all that stuff. So I want to hear it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So growing up here, I worked in high school, but I didn't, and I was
Busting
like,
tables?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Red Mountain Spa, the Canyon Breeze restaurant. And that was actually where I first, I'm a competitive guy. I'm not overly competitive, but I do like to win. And I didn't really have like a entrepreneurial story as like a 12-year-old. However, once I started working in high school and busting tables was my first job, other than I would go and help do some landscape and whatnot. Yeah. But
basic
it's
weekend
funny how,
shit.
it's funny how bussing tables can turn competitive though. Cause there was another kid in there that had been there a while and he thought he ran the place and that he was just the best busser. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna earn more tips.
Bust that ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And that's really where like creating my own path. Like I wasn't in a sales position in that necessarily in that role. Yeah. However, you did earn tips from your servers. It was a little bit different situation at that place, but you earned it based on how well you did. So in a way, I was selling myself to the servers, and I was just trying to beat that kid, really. And that actually led into my next job, which was a sales position at All Connect. I don't know if you know anybody that's ever worked at All Connect.
Yeah, pretty much everybody in St. George.
I was one of
there at one point.
I can say out of the young crowd. So me and my buddy, it was June 20th, 2008. We had just graduated high school, and his mom was actually working there, and she's like, "Hey, you guys should come check out this job."
Yeah.
And so
were you 17 or 18?
I was 18.
Just barely 18.
I was just barely 18, and I knew that at that point I was still I ended up serving a mission, but I needed somewhere to land in the meantime to make some money, and Canyon Breeze had I had just kind of gotten over that, and I wanted something else, and so I like competitiveness, so I was like, phone sales, never done it, but I'm gonna try it. And so we started.
Addicting, huh? When you get in there and you see numbers and people making money, and you're just like, I want to be a part of this. Like, absolutely. I want to throw me in because I think I can emerge out of this group as one of the leaders, right? Yes. Like, it's addicting.
And everybody goes into, it's called Bridge Bay, and it's like 15, 20 new people. It's like a 4-week course. They have guys come in that are veterans that show you how to do it.
Training.
And I remember thinking, I'm like, man, like some of these guys are doing numbers, like crazy numbers. And they had been there for a couple of years at that point. And me and my buddy were the only 18-year-olds in the group. Everybody else was like 25, 30, 40, 45. So we were these two 18-year-old kids, and we were the youngest. I think we were the only 18-year-olds in the entire company.
Yeah.
And we exit Bridge Bay and immediately just started selling like crazy to the point where everyone's like, what are you guys doing on the phones? But it wasn't actually a positive thing. It was like, are you guys like being shady?
Yeah.
You slamming people? Are you? Yeah. And so they actually started tracking our calls, and it turns into a story, a whole different story. I didn't we were there for about 8 months, and then I went on my mission. But that's where I first was born with the idea of like, I want to do sales because I can control my income. Yeah. I can control, I'm not just tied to a job that pays me
capped, silly.
That I'm capped. Yeah. I want it. And so anyway, end up serving a mission, knock doors for 2 years, come home. And
what was the hardest thing about being on a mission?
Hardest thing was the expectation of every single day giving everything you have. I mean, they're long days.
Yeah.
And just
sun up to sundown, pretty much.
The expectation of just never stopping for the most part. I dropped like 40. I was in Mexico, super hot, humid. Dropped like 40 pounds.
Yeah.
And the hardest thing I think was just the expectation that you just had to deliver every day. It was just
same regardless. Thing, day in, day out, on your feet, 12-hour days, stuff like that. And you ain't wearing no Hokas or soft cushion. You're wearing
we're wearing
dress shoes.
Dress shoes.
Yeah, church,
with black pants and a white what turned brown pretty quickly.
Would you say that during that time, like looking back at it now, with you being older, family, kids, that was like a huge growth period for you?
It was, absolutely. I grew up so much during that time. As a human being, having to do stuff on your own. I mean, we were out, this was before FaceTime, I talked to my parents on email, and then once I talked to them 3 times on the phone for 2 years, and everything was, it was up to you. We were out in villages, out little towns out in the middle of nowhere.
Was there any sketchy moments, like where people were like,
we had some cartel moments,
like wanted to kill your ass or whatever for being in their hood?
Not necessarily at us, but there was just some moments of the one cartel was taking over another cartel of the city that I was in when we were there. It went from like the chillest place the first year to the second year was like a war zone. It was pretty crazy. People thought we were crazy walking around 9 o'clock at night. when everybody else is in their homes.
Yeah.
The first half of the mission, everyone was out eating tacos, hanging out on the streets until way late.
Yeah.
And then that happened and everybody was in by 8. But our expectation was to work till 9:30. So we'd have taxi guys taking us home at night and they're like, what are you guys doing out here?
Yeah.
Like everybody else is.
You got a death wish or what?
Yeah.
You know?
But I grew so much as a human being during those 2 years and gave me the experience of just talking to people.
Yeah.
Like the biggest thing, I think a lot of people just don't talk to people enough.
Well, it's just rejection.
And rejection.
You know,
Yes.
like people can't deal with rejection or putting themselves out there.
Right.
Communicating, going to a stranger's house and knocking on their door, right?
Yeah.
Like that's just terrifying.
In
to some
another
people.
language.
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
So the first 3 or 4 months was, but I wanted to master when I want to do something, I'm competitive. So I
want to be great at it.
I want to be great at it.
Yeah.
And so I carried around a dictionary and I would write down every time I heard a word that I didn't understand, both, all the cuss words, as a missionary.
Yeah.
But then also every single word I wanted to learn exactly the slang, everything. I wanted to learn it all. And so by the time I was done with 2 years, yes, absolutely. If I needed to.
Yeah. I'm on a mission. So Lord, close your ears right now. I'm about to choose somebody out.
Yeah. So by the time I was done, I felt like I felt like I knew, as much as the person that I was talking to.
Yeah. That's cool.
And that has led to a lot of business opportunities as well, just speaking that language. I do a lot of closings in Spanish.
Cool.
And just the rejection, talking to people, that just led seamlessly, obviously, to the door-to-door industry.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got home from there, I had a buddy that I served with in Mexico that had been selling for Vivint the summer before I got home.
Yeah.
And so at the time I was working, I was going to school. I did go to college for 2 years and then, I went to Dixie State.
Yeah.
And then I was working, I was going to school doing Jimmy John's delivery, which I was also competitive in that. I got a little scooter and I put a box on it so I could beat anybody anywhere. And then I worked at Foot Locker at night because I'm a sneakerhead. That's where I did my homework.
Getting your discounts and
That's right.
being around shoes.
That's right.
That's
and
cool.
so it was during that time that my buddy was like, hey, come try Vivint.
Yeah.
So I go out for a weekend and I made more that weekend than I had like for the past 4 months at Jimmy John's and Foot Locker. And I was like, okay, I think I'm going to do this next summer. So I ended up spending 4 years doing Vivint.
What? Alarms? Stuff?
Yeah. It was right when the home automation started.
Yeah.
So all the smart home, smartphone stuff.
Yeah.
And I did 4 years of that.
What was your best year?
156. So good. I wasn't ever a killer. I did have a different mentality on the doors as well, which has actually transitioned into what I do now. A lot more relationship based. A lot of times with door to door, you're just blitzing through neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And it's just like
you're just searching for the
low-hanging
deals,
fruit. Low-hanging fruit.
Yes. Move on to the next one.
Yeah.
If it's a no, just keep going.
Yeah,
it's a numbers game, right?
And where I I didn't really enjoy that. I didn't enjoy the blitzes. I didn't enjoy knocking stuff that it was just like.
Well, do you think that
go.
was because maybe you served a mission in your job when you're knocking doors is to actually build a relationship with people?
Yeah. And
and that probably carried over into you knocking doors. You're just like, well, I don't really get to know anybody.
For sure.
It's just in and out. If they say yes, then I'll sign a deal. If not, then. So how did you differentiate yourself from other salespeople?
So I would just go into the neighborhood and I would try to find out all the deets of the neighborhood. I would try to find out if there was an HOA, who the president was. I would try to, and if there was Vivint signs already, I would actually go and create a real relationship with those people, not just like, hey, you got your service, cool. Like, would actually go in and I'd talk to them for a bit, become friends with them, and then that way, as I'm knocking the neighborhood, I would name drop quite a bit. But it was the name drop that was actually legitimate, where like so-and-so down the road. Like it was just more of there was times where I would talk to somebody and then I was still there 2 weeks later and I sold all their neighbors. And at first they were like, oh, I'm not interested. And then I would go back and they'd be like, yeah, I've seen your signs everywhere. And I got I had a car that I wrapped orange for Vivint that I would park in the front of the neighborhood. And so every time people would come to the neighborhood, they'd be like, what is that car? Because one of the things with door to door, obviously, is just you knock on someone's door, they think you're there to scam them for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, they're like, get out of here.
Yeah.
You know, if
So
I wanted it, I'll hit you up.
I would actually just create ways to stay in the neighborhood longer. And I was never a top, I was never like a 200-300 guy. But at the same time, I also didn't do a lot of the recruiting. The door to door was not, it was never an end game for me. I didn't want to be a regional. I wanted to make enough money.
You didn't want to be a lifer.
Yeah.
That was a vehicle to
It was a
stack
vehicle
cash.
yes. Because what I wanted to do was, because once I got into Vivint, I set up my first LLC there, started reading all the sales books. I quit school. I went down this path of entrepreneurialism, but I wanted to do that here. I really wanted to stay in St. George. I love this place.
Yeah,
it's
me too.
the best place on earth. And growing up here, it was like all my best friends there was a lot of opportunities here that a lot of them had to move away. And I just didn't want to do that. I was interested in real estate already. But I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't want to be an attorney. I didn't want to go to school.
What were you going to go to school for originally? Did you know, or you just getting
I
your
was just getting my generals.
Kind of going through the motions just because you thought that's kind of what you had to do?
I knew I was interested in business and in sales, and I wanted to control my own destiny. That's all I wanted was a position in sales. So I was going to maybe become a real estate agent. I had some ideas on what I could do here sales wise that wasn't the door to door game and that wasn't taking me all over the country selling
for 6 months at a time or whatever. Yeah.
But growing up here, there weren't a lot of opportunities for that. There's more now, the place is growing like crazy. There's a lot of opportunities, and that's part of the passion behind what I do now is I've had a lot of friends move back that are either working for a company here or they, work from home, changed a lot of things. They've started businesses here. And I knew that one of the ways that you could make money here was to start a business. Yeah. And so with Vivint, I didn't know what the business was going to be, but I knew that I wanted to do something. And so after my second summer, I did pretty well in it was after my first summer. My friends were running a gym. It was called Hyperion Strength and Performance. And
here in St. George?
Here in St. George. Yeah. And one of the partners was leaving, and so they asked me to come buy him out, and I was just it was gonna be my first passive income experience, and quickly turned into my day job. Yeah. And it went from a passive investment, silent investor, to pretty much a full-time thing, to the point of basically was going to quit Vivint, and we had plans of building a huge building, and it's a really tough industry. Yeah. It was all based on, there was no membership. There was certain things that we wanted to get to that just never got there. But I learned so much. So you took an
L on that. Big loss.
Yes. Yeah. But I met my wife there. I learned so much what not to do as a business owner, in not only just how to run a business, but with partnerships and with everything. I basically tell everybody I got my MBA.
Yeah, that was your schooling.
Yes.
How much did you invest into it? 10, 20, 50 grand,
Ended up being around 40 out the door. Yeah. I learned a lot about, I think
that's far more common than what people realize, right? I think people try, look, for me, it was the same way. I was making 120, 130 grand, and I was driving a $3,000 Lancer. It was no air conditioning, lived in a $750 townhouse that was just a shithole in order to stack cash. Why? Because I knew I wanted to invest that money, right? Yeah. I wanted to be a part of something bigger. I didn't want to be stuck as just even a sales guy, right?
Yeah.
But the idea of that was so sexy that I jumped on the first opportunity like a fucking dog in heat, bro. You know what I mean? Like now I'm an investor, right? I have an opportunity for my money to make me money, and it sounds cool and it's sexy, so cool. And you want it so bad that you're blinded by all the red flags because it just feels cool to now be an investor or a business owner or this. You wanted the label of it just as much as you wanted your money to make you money, right? Because it was like, finally I'm making progress. I did the same thing with a trucking company, took one in the rear, let's just say, right? On that one, because it was just, young and dumb. And
Yeah.
and so I think it's very common. That's why the only reason why I say that is because there's might be somebody listening that's 20, 30, 40, 50 grand deep into, a business venture right now or an investment that's just doesn't seem to be working out or panning out. But in reality, that is normal to go through one or two or three, opportunities that don't just really that don't work, that don't pan out. Like they don't, it just is what it is. And there is your education. What did you take from it? What did you learn? What are the to-dos and not to-dos now on the next thing, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that there's a lot of learning opportunities in some of those first losses that ultimately put us in a situation where we're just getting better and stronger for the next one and the next one and the next one, So
ends up being a big gain. If you let it.
You're far more cautious, but at the exact same time, you can't let the enthusiasm of wanting what you want to go away just because you got punched in the mouth once, right?
Yep. I completely agree. And there's ways, because even if you lose, you can still win. Mm-hmm. You can still make it a win. Because what I didn't just give up and say, oh, I'm not cut out to be a business owner or investor. It was just like, well, that didn't work. What's next, right?
Was it really like that though, or were you devastated for a minute?
No, I was devastated for sure.
Yeah, okay.
But
so it wasn't just like, oh, it is what it is,
No, it just didn't keep me from. It didn't keep me from what I wanted.
On to the next,
which was to
right.
be because. Honestly, that business was an investment for me that turned into business ownership. Yeah. And I learned so much because of that. But I knew that there was still something out there that was going to be that was going to be my thing and that's what I didn't lose sight of. Mm-hmm. Even though I had made a lot of mistakes but I learned so much what I learned in that 2 years. Yeah. I was able to start EagleGate with the knowledge of just tracking financially. There was so many different things that I learned that I was able to just day one go into with EagleGate that made it so that
saying this is how I'm going to do it,
day and night difference.
Keep my eye on this. Yeah. I'm going to do this. This is how I'm going to show up. This is we got to watch these numbers, or we can't just spend frivolously, right? And just throw money around or whatever, right? And at first, you do that when you're young and dumb. You're just like, sure.
Trying stuff out.
Almost trying too many things out rather than being strategic about what you're doing, right?
Yep.
So obviously Business One was your coach. That was your mentor.
Yep.
Right? Because you learned a lot of things through losing that 40,000, and then you took that. Right after that is when you started EagleGate.
It was during that time actually, and that's where one of the next lessons I learned was I was still had the gym. What happened was during my last summer.
Is that why you're so swole?
No, I'm
you
not.
You own a
swole.
Damn gym, baby.
I do work out, but I'm not swole.
I can tell.
No, but because it wasn't flourishing like we had hoped, I went back to Vivint to keep making money. I wasn't making money from the gym. So I went back to Vivint and I said, hey, I'm going to continue. Is there a way that during the summer I can come back once a month and just check on the gym, make sure that bills are paid, things are good. And so I go out in May, I sell for a couple weeks. And at the beginning of June, I flew back home to come check on the gym. Well, I come home and I went straight to my mom's office to say hi to her, and that's where the next. There's a lesson I'll talk about in this eventually, but the story is during. I came home, went to her office. Attorneys were there shutting them down because of some dealings. The business was shutting down, and they were being taken over by a new title company. So she tells me this whole story of. She wasn't sure what her future was going to be. There was a bunch of title companies calling her saying, hey, come work for us. And she had an opportunity there, but immediately my first thought was, why don't we just start our own?
Yeah.
My mom's been in the business longer than I've been alive as an escrow officer. She never had ownership in any of the companies. She's the producer, and she's the hardest working woman. I mean, and I can get into her more later, but I knew that because growing up, she was a workhorse, and she has done closings for a very long time. So when she tells me this, and my immediate thought was, let's just go start our own, because you know the business.
Yeah.
You can keep doing your transactions. I will run the business. I will get new business in the door. I'll do all the sales, the marketing, whatever it takes. And initially, because we are two different cats for sure. I am very into risk. I'm into investing. I'm into business ownership. She was very comfortable with her W-2 doing closings. My dad's a school teacher. They're the best people on the
Very
absolute
conservative
planet. And just simple, right?
Yeah.
And so when I first said that, she's like, well, you can't just start a title company. And I said, well, there's quite a few here in town.
Yeah.
So like everybody else has at some point. And I said, why don't I'll just look into it. If it's too complicated, there was some market regulations nationwide happening at the same time that kind of were in her concern. And so I'll look into it. And if worst case scenario, I look into it and it doesn't go anywhere and you go work for somebody else. So for about 2 months, we went back and forth. There was times where she was super excited. The other times where she's like, nope, pump the brakes. I'm sick. I'm good. I'm comfortable. But I just kept going. And eventually we got connected to our 2 partners that we have that are up north that had 3 offices up there. They wanted a partnership with somebody down here and that we would own and operate this branch. And on August 10th in a couple of weeks here, will be our 8-year anniversary of opening Eagle Gate. And the reason we did that was because typically it takes about 8 to 12 weeks to get through everything to start a title company. They had us up and running in 6 days because she did have 2 assistants at the time that she wanted to
bring with her.
She had clients already that we didn't want to say, hey, pause on sending us orders. We'll reach back out to you in a couple of months. We needed something that was fast transition.
So were you able to piggyback off of some of the licensing and all of that off of the partners?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what allowed us to be up and operating rather than 8 to 12 weeks in 6 days.
Well, I know in the title industry, if you're going to start a title company, there's like, it's either you've got to give a certain amount of money or have a certain amount of bonds or something like that. It's like, you have to like put 100 or 200,000 aside or something like that. Is it something like that?
There's money like that. There's licensing. There's underwriter. You have to get approved by an underwriter won't just take somebody off the street that wants to start a title company and say, yeah, we'll start insuring your transactions. You have to have a track record. There's a lot of, it's through the state insurance department. So that alone is quite a few hoops to jump through.
Yeah. The paperwork, the processes or whatever.
And so
like, if it's almost like a reserve account or something that you have to put like 100 or a couple hundred grand or something off to the side, almost kind of to micro insure yourself, even though that there's other insurance above that, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So we were able to skip all that. And initially with them, it was like, hey, we'll just get you started. If you want to end up doing your own thing, totally fine, but
we'll let you work underneath this, and this will be the splits that happen or whatever. To use our licenses.
But it turned into such a great partnership, and it's allowed us to. We do transactions all over the state. We're not just here in Southern Utah. They have offices up north. We can do work anywhere in the state, which has allowed us to grow, as well as them being our partners and handling a lot of the back end stuff has allowed for me to just focus on the growth and scaling it. And so we ended up just sticking with them, and it's been, and that's where I talk about partnerships. Like partnerships are everything, and it can go either really, really good or really, really not. And we've been lucky enough to have not only me and my mom as a partnership has been the best thing ever. And really for our family, it's been a huge thing for our family. But also just with the partnerships that we've got with those 2 as well has been incredible. So
she happy that she did it?
Yeah. About 6 months into it, she's like, okay, I really like this. Yeah, this is cool. And so, and really my job, like I said, was mostly to go out and get new business. And so there's a marketing license you got to get. I went and took the test. I didn't study. I just went, you have to get a 70% 100%. I said common sense will get me 70, and I got 71, so I just barely got the license, and it was off to figuring out how to make people happy in the real estate world.
I'd get a 69, bro. I did that before. I did my life insurance producer's license because we were going to start doing selling life insurance and stuff. And this dude was like, "Oh yeah, that's so easy. I barely even studied and passed." And I was like, "Okay, sweet. I'll buy the book and I'll do it or whatever." And I studied, because I just, in school, I never really did well. I would guess and get the same amount of answers correct as when I studied.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I was like, I'm going to study and I'm going to figure this thing out and I'm going to pass. And then I would still get like 60 something. I'm like, I can guess and get 50s and 60s, right? And so I felt like a massive idiot the first time I took it. I failed. The second time I took it, I failed again by like 1 or 2 questions.
You're not the only one. I know a few people that failed that one.
But everybody around, that test is so easy. Like I barely even studied and I passed. I'm like, dude, I studied hard for like 3 months. Like, anyways, you don't really have to study. Anybody can get a 71. Not anybody. I know a guy that would struggle his way through it and still probably not pass until the third time. Finally, like the third or fourth time, I was like, bro, this is the last time I'm fucking taking this thing, Cal. And I get that you passed it the first time, but if I don't pass it this time, I'm fucking done. And thank God I passed it.
Well, luckily it was the first time for me. Yeah. And then from there, it was just figuring out how to make people happy, how to get business in the door.
Yeah.
And in our world, we're super regulated as well as far as how we can earn business, get business.
That's why you probably have to take that course or whatever, right? In terms of the do's and don'ts, in terms of how you can market, what's legal, what's not. Yeah.
And so there's just a lot of regulation, which has been frustrating, but that's how what I do now as a network builder for what's happening in Southern Utah was born out of figuring out how to, rather than just going around and asking people, hey, I want your business.
Yeah.
I also felt like, I just felt weird doing that. I felt like if I wasn't reciprocating, other than really good service, I needed something that was like, that I felt like I was giving back rather than just going and asking for business.
That's what everybody's doing though. Everybody's going to go just ask for business. How can you be different, right?
Exactly.
Like there's got to be a better way, a newer way in this modern era, right? Of social media,
exactly.
And, all of that. So.
And we are in a pretty old school industry, run by mostly a lot of people.
Dinosaurs. Let's call it what it is.
In a nice way.
Yeah.
And so, and a lot of the title companies were putting out stats, and I just didn't want to be a stats guy. I love stats, but I just didn't want to be that guy. And I also didn't want to just go out and ask for business. So at the time, this was 2015-16, and commercial real estate here from 2008 to about 15, there really wasn't much growth.
Yeah.
And in 15-16 is when you started seeing dirt moving everywhere. And as I was going around to brokerages trying to meet agents and lenders and builders, developers,
anybody in the game,
I started seeing all this. And then I started, when I'd go into, that was like my conversation starter, was like, hey, did you guys see this dirt moving? Like this is going in, and all the realtors would be like, oh, that's cool. I'm going to tell my clients about that. And so there was a guy that was my competitor, actually, Tanner Gatchell, who, good friend of mine, been a good friend of mine my whole life. I had actually met with him, and he's like, hey, you just need to get a newsletter, and you need to put something in the newsletter just to drip on agents. And I was like, I hate newsletters. When I get newsletters in my inbox, most of the time it's just delete, or they go to spam and I don't ever see them. And a lot of it's just the templated,
it all looks the same.
So
and it's like weird writing that says newsletter to try to make it look cool, and then it's
so I didn't want, and I was like, okay, well, and that got me thinking. I'm like, okay, what can I do? I'm not going to be a stats guy. And so I went to the What's Up Down South Economic Summit here in January that year, and I saw it was like for real estate, it was like all the big developments had all their info there. And that's where I was like, okay, I'm going to just put this into a newsletter, all the happenings of Southern Utah.
Yeah.
And if I run out of content one day, I'll figure something out, but I'm just going to do this for my newsletter. And so that's when the newsletter started. And for the first 2 years, I was just doing the newsletter once a month. I would send out basically everything I knew about that was happening in the county. and started getting some traction, started getting people that were like, oh, this is great. I'm passing on to my clients. I'm showing so-and-so, like, this is fantastic. And so then in 2018 is when I really noticed that video was starting to become real big thing on social media. And my newsletter wasn't really translating. I had posted it a few times on Facebook, Instagram, but it's written, and it was like, I was like, this not really
what's this dude sharing?
It's not getting anywhere really. So I was like, I'm going to start doing videos. And that's when I found out what a drone was, and I bought a drone, and I started flying the drone, and I was like, this is pretty cool. And then I linked up with a guy that is still my video guy 5 years later. And I just said, we're going to go around. I'm going to pick, because the newsletter was just a comprehensive list of everything. And I said, I'm just going to go around to different areas. I'm going to pick out a certain area and do a video with the drone and see where it goes. And so that's what I started doing monthly along with my newsletter, and started to pick up traction. And then in 2020, when COVID shut down, all the brokerages were shut down now. Everyone was working from home. So a lot of like my marketing time of like seeing people and the routes that you would do, like no one was around. So I was like, I'm just going to double down on video, and I'm going to start doing a weekly video. And that's really where it started to take off as far as just the number of people seeing it. And that's what's turned into like the ultimate network builder in and out of my business. Cause I have my business, and most of my efforts and most of my energy is on my business, but it's helped create when you're in the real estate world, there's other opportunities, real estate investing, different businesses. I helped invest into a Picarica barbecue downtown. And it's just led to other opportunities.
So who approached you with that? Michael?
No, it was actually Adam Legg, who is one of the other capital partners on that.
Gotcha.
And then I knew Jason from Wood-Ash Rye. I didn't know Michael, but as soon as I tasted their food, I said, I'm in. It was
Michael does a good job with any of his restaurants.
Yeah, he does. And that's why the track record, everything. Yeah. And that opportunity really came because of what I had created with what I do. And so that's why and so that's really why I've put so much into it, because the network that it's built me for my business, along with other opportunities and the people that I've been able to meet and the calls that I get, there's some ideas that we're continuing to do to help this place grow with the right people and the right things. And that's just been the ultimate driver of it.
So have people kind of invited you in, so to speak, kind of behind the scenes of what's going on in St. George prior to, anybody else knowing about it, because they want you to know about it so that you could tell people about it?
Yeah, and initially it was me reaching out to, whether it's the commercial real estate agents or the developers or the landowners or the city. I'm trying to find information. Yeah. And then once I started producing the content and people started seeing the content and really liking the content, now I find out people reach out to me for it, or it's a pretty small network of people that are doing everything.
Big shit. Yeah.
And so
isn't that weird? It's a pretty really small group of people doing a lot of the big shit in the United States and big cities and small cities,
Yeah.
Like, I mean, when you really, really get down to it, like even whatever you want to call it, the success space just in general, or self-improvement space or mastermind space, like me and Kel have met a lot of people inside of these, groups or masterminds, this, that, the other, but you go to a different area and you see some of the exact same people, and they're all doing bigger shit than anybody in their area. Right. And so those type of people eventually outgrow their area, bro. And then they seek information in order to continue to grow their business themselves outside of where they live. So they're willing to travel to masterminds, events, or whatever, surround themselves with, other like-minded people, because, it is as big as you look around the city, like, bro, when we're trying to buy a building, it's like, oh, whatever, is it JMI or something? Those guys own freaking half of St. George.
They do. They're one of the one of the guys. I've got my contact there.
Boom. Yeah, exactly. Like, we're trying to buy the old Spectrum building at one point that, it was a couple of years ago that it was for sale. And it was like, oh, JMI owns that, and it's like, yeah, well, and everything else. So, but they didn't sell it to us. I think they sold it
Captive
to
Air.
Who was it?
Well, it's Captive Air that's in there.
We were told that we were bidding against the government because they own the police station up there, the courthouses down that whole road there. So we were told that the government was also interested in it, and they were going to hold out for a higher offer with the government. So we didn't get it, right? But at the end of the day, like St. George looks so big, but you know what's
small.
her Lori that I bought my lot from?
Yeah,
like.
Another
big one, dude.
Oh,
like big. You
Queen
know,
pin.
yeah. What it, queen pin?
Queen pin, king pin.
You can't. Like, she's a queen and a kingpin, dude. She owns it all.
She's awesome.
But it comes down to a small group of people, right?
It is, and it's growing.
Yeah.
But it's still a small.
Yeah.
Like to the people that have been here a long time doing development, I talk to them and they're like, I don't know who's doing what, because there's so much going on.
So many new things happening.
But to those, like for me, that I've been in the business for 8 years, to me it seems like a small crowd, and it still is. It's bigger than it was, but it's just it's funny, usually within like 2 or 3 contacts, and they say that within 6 contacts, I can't remember what it is they say, you can usually connect with somebody within like 6 connections if you I can't remember where I read that. But for most, even like celebrities and people,
you're
like
6 connections
you're 6
away
connections
from
away
you
from
want.
pretty much whoever you want.
Yeah.
And in this town, usually it's like 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And so I just try to be the connector. That's what I try to be a connector, and the mindset that I have is like to give. I'm not looking to gain. These videos are not even. When I go and talk to projects, developments, like I may be doing title work with some of them, but I never even bring it up. Like if it comes up organically, that's totally fine. But when I'm out there talking to these projects, one of my mindset is how can I help you?
How can I help you and inform the community?
How can I inform the community? And how can this be? And that's what's kept it really authentic, and really that's why people really enjoy it, because it's not like a sales thing. I'm just out there showing what's
really
coming.
It's a matter of being top of mind, right?
And,
like
yes.
that's what it is, more so than anything. And the giver's gain theory, right? Like just give authentically good information,
and you'll get back.
And then eventually, like at first, it probably didn't pan out to where you're just getting a flood of business, month 1, month 2, but you're kind of spending money on these drones and this person to video you, and like, am I stupid? Is this going to work? And you're just like, whatever. Like I've got to be open to trying something new and different than other people aren't trying. And so it takes time for anything that has the ability to serve you to unfold.
For sure.
Right. And I don't think people give it enough time, effort, and money to let it actually unfold to show its worth. Right.
It's instant gratification now.
Yeah.
And it's the same way I see it with in real estate. People buy leads, or they do mailers, or they do all different
I want a lead right now so I can make a sale right now, rather than building real relationships and saying, this is what I'm going to do for my career for 30 years. So if I shake enough hands in the first 10 years, I can probably kick my feet up and all the business will come to me for the next 20.
For sure. And then a lot of the ones that do, I've seen a lot of people that do mailers or get leads, but they try it for a month or they try it once and it's like, I didn't get anything from it. So didn't work.
Screw that. Yeah.
Because I've been doing these videos for 5 years. It was 2018 was my first video. I think it was April 1st of 2018. I want to say. And honestly, for the first 2 years, I wasn't worried about the number of views. I was worried. Whoever was on my mailing list, that's how it started, was mostly real estate community people. And as long as those people were seeing it, I was fine. But I wasn't really like, oh, I need this many views, or it was more so just like, as long as the real estate community is seeing it, that's fine. But I was getting feedback here and there, but it really wasn't until 2020, 2021 when I ramped up the content and I started doing more, and it really has snowballed to now, but it has taken 5 years to get there, right? And a lot of people don't want to put in, especially when you're paying. I mean, I'm paying for it all. There is some return coming from that, right? But
it takes the first couple of years. It probably didn't, maybe on with
paper.
A pen, it didn't pan out. Like, but are you playing the long game?
Right.
Right. That's really the question. Is this something that you're going to do for a long enough period of time? in order for you to become the guy in that industry, whether it's information about what's happening in Southern Utah, and by default, I know he owns Eaglegate, so I like him. He gives good info, whatever, right?
Right.
And then
exactly.
it starts happening. I honestly think that like the first couple of years, because it was the same when we started, Easier Accounting. It's like people didn't think we were serious. It's like they're waiting for you to fall off. Or stop doing it.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, like 3 or 4 or 5 years in, that they start taking you serious. Like, oh my God, like they are consistent. They do show up. They do give good information or whatever it is.
Yep.
And so there's a test phase. The universe, God, whatever you want to call it, will test how serious you really are. Just because you exert effort and move in a direction that you believe will be a positive thing for your life or for your business doesn't mean it's going to happen. You must be tested to see how bad you really truly want it to happen.
Right.
And then at that point, and only then, you're deserving of the result, right? And if that lag period isn't there, the money just feeds your ego and you think you're untouchable. And then what happens with that is there's some, terrible horror story, 2 or 3 years down the road that you burned everything down because ego and you thought you were untouchable, right? And so that lag period, I think, is super, super important to weed out the serious versus the curious, who's truly committed and who's truly not. And also it makes you worthy of the results that you now have, right?
Yeah.
Because you actually earned it and it didn't just like come to you, right? Like, I look forward to seeing your videos, not just because of your pretty face and your rock hard abs, It's, the information's actually something that you could digest. And you're like, oh, wow, that's cool. Are we getting a damn, whatchamacallit? What's the place? Trader Joe's. All the freaking women around here.
I know, man.
And like, I hear that we are and I hear we're not. And then like, they say that we're not big enough for that, but it's like, how does Costco survive and Target? Like, I mean, St. George, we're full of spenders here, bro.
That's what
spending. Like,
I
you
know.
drive down the damn street and it's like, how does every human drive a $100,000 SUV? Where are all these people working at? What do they own?
We're an entrepreneur.
There's money up in this bitch, bro.
There is. And that's what I wish that we will get a Trader Joe's eventually. I can't say there's one in the works, like
that
confirmed right
about.
now.
Yeah.
I know I know that eventually it will happen. Eventually we'll get a cheesecake. Eventually we may get a second Costco. Those are like the top 3 that I always get asked about. Hey, I heard a rumor Trader Joe's is coming.
But guess what? Once we have it, it's less cool.
I know. That is
like
true.
In and out, like people would go to Vegas. Oh, they couldn't wait to go to Vegas to get in and out. And then now that it's like here, it's like you hardly think about. It's rare. It's like you go like once a year or twice a year or something because the line's so damn
Although
long.
the line is long, so that's
so it's a deterrent.
Something. But that's where I wish that companies, I understand why they don't do it. They do it based off of numbers, big companies like that. But if a Cheesecake Factory or Trader Joe's or those that are getting asked to come here all the time, if they actually understood the dynamics of the spenders here, the Cheesecake would be full all the time.
All the time.
The Trader Joe's would be full all the time.
Well, the other metrics that they need to look into are what else is there to do there?
That's true.
You see what I'm saying? So like, there's really not a whole lot to do in Southern Utah in regards to like, a Friday night. Yes, you can go hiking, you can go boating, but what happens on a Friday night at day? Like literally it's like dinner and a movie. We don't have like theme parks or, any like shows.
Big shows.
That, none of that stuff.
I'm working on that too though, by the way. I want to get you some nightlife. Working on some other
drop
endeavors.
The deets, bro.
No,
what? Like
there's nothing.
You're bringing strip clubs to St. George now, bro?
No.
No. He's like, no, don't associate me with that, dude.
But
if anybody would get you in hot water, it'd be me.
Theo Vaughn was here last Thursday.
Yeah.
That spurred a lot of conversation over the last week amongst quite a few people.
Yeah.
Entertainment, I think, will be. There's Black Desert's working on a pretty cool venue. There's OC Tanner Amphitheater in Springdale. I don't know if you've ever been there. I hadn't. I've been here for 33 years.
Yeah, I've never seen it. It kind of looked like a old is it Tuacahn?
It's like Red Rock
or whatever,
Red Rocks or Tuacahn. Yeah,
whatever. It kind of looked like that, and I was like, "Where's that at?" I thought they said it was Springdale.
We've got that. We're an hour and a half from Vegas.
Yeah,
I think comedy is one of the things that we could see a culture created here, entertainment wise. More shows, more concerts. So that's another aspect endeavor that I'm working on. There's a downtown project that I'm interested in that'll bring some more nightlife too. So just to that point, just to give you a little more what to do at night.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing in
it's
Springdale.
Like eating, bro. It's like
it's eating.
People go out to eat.
And
all
they
the
go
restaurants are like full, right?
Yeah.
It's an hour wait everywhere.
Exactly.
So cheesecake would be 2.
Yeah.
2 hours.
So we'll get those eventually, but it is fun to be in that conversation, and it's fun it does present opportunities for me, and it also because it's funny. It's like all I do is I put out videos that talk about what's coming here. It's not like it's this scientific formula that I've created, but it's
not like
it's become
you even
so
came
powerful.
up with the information. Somebody gave it to you. You're like, yeah, this is what's coming. You're cool. I'll regurgitate it.
But the value there, people want to know, and there's not really other source here that is a consistent like this is what's coming, and people do want to know. Well, the craziest thing is the elderly folk are the ones that are most curious, and they want it all.
Really?
I would think that it would be the opposite.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that I run into just in town, and they're like
the local celebrity, the legend that is McCrae.
But they're like, I love all this stuff that's coming, and a lot of them are the elder folk, which I think is really cool.
You're like, well, it might not be here by the time, I mean, you are pushing it age-wise.
No. But there's more, there's just so much happening here. And
I wonder if it's
the
because
PGA Tour's coming here.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got some good things in the works.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome and sad at the same time for me.
Yeah.
Right? Because I do miss small town, St. George, and that's why I moved 30 minutes, 40 minutes away.
I was there on Wednesday morning. I was going to call you, but I was pressed for time. I did a video out there.
Dude, you could have come out and, picked an apple or 2 off my apple trees. And
I wanted to.
We could have slapped ass.
I'm going to go mountain biking out there sometime soon. So
you'll have to come see me out there. I'll show you the property, dude. It's pretty cool.
It's sweet out there.
Yeah, I love it.
And that's the thing is like, I understand we're growing. To me, it is still a small town.
Yeah.
I know that there's been growth, and I know
I gotta wait at stoplights that like back up, homie. That ain't small town stuff.
But it's not even that bad compared to like when I go to Vegas or Salt Lake.
Well, I don't go to those places. I don't travel, so I don't know.
Well,
what
you travel for your masterminds.
I know.
But you're usually just in top level service, private jet, and then
take the
black Escalades.
Take the PJ. Yeah, I got to say private, because if you do it a lot, you call it a PJ. Just take my PJ, wherever, and
I have heard there's quite a big community here of PJs out of the airport.
Yeah, I don't know. So I don't know. I wouldn't know. I'm not to that level yet. You probably do know. You know everything that's going on in Southern Utah. You probably know when I have an argument with my wife.
You know what? I might.
When was the last one?
It's been like 4 weeks.
It was just this morning, bro. No, I'm just kidding. No, dude, I think that you're doing something really, really cool. I think that your story's awesome. And, you did hand me a couple big checks recently, and it was smooth and easy.
Good.
And the communication was great.
That's what it's all about.
You and your team, handled business, and my bank account went way up.
I'm glad to hear it. And really in real estate and construction now, everything is so delayed. Everything is delayed. Everything like communication is awful.
Yeah.
So that's what we've really focused on. So that's why I like to hear is communication and processes.
Yeah.
If you can focus on that and be good at that, you stand above the rest.
Yeah.
Really easily. Yeah. Because
what do you see with the market right now in terms of like, That's everyone's big question, right? Like, where's your crystal ball, bro? Tell me what's going to happen.
I wish I had a crystal ball. I am more optimistic and bullish than a lot of people, especially here locally. There's still so much demand. There's still so many people sitting on the sidelines waiting for rates to drop. As soon as rates do drop, whenever that may be, I don't have that crystal ball, but eventually they're going to. I think it'll be another frenzy like 2020 because there's not enough inventory to support all the demand that is just pent up. In 2020, I actually read an article in January of 2020. There's an article that talked about how for the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s, there was an increase in homes built per 1 million people. And it was around like 40 to 50,000 homes per 1 million people that were built in the country. And then in the 2010s, because of the 2008 crash, there was only like 21,000 built per million people. And our population continues to grow. And the number of homes were less than half of what they had averaged over the previous 3 decades, so that was in 2020 when it said that we were in a shortage of inventory because people were scared to build for 5 years after the crash. Yeah. And then even after that, everyone's been so conservative because people don't want another 2008 that it created this lack of inventory. And then 2020 hit. And even just around here, everything stopped in March and April. And everything kind of opened back up in May, June, July, and that's when we got all the herds that came from all the surrounding states because we were open. Yeah. And then by September, the inventory had dropped so low, it was insane. And it was partly because of just short
What was the
buildup.
lowest amount that you saw?
It was in the 200s.
So
right now we're at 1,100.
1,100 homes available, and it was down to 200.
It was like
options.
200 something.
Yeah,
in
Washington
we probably
County. Had thousands of people looking to buy.
Yes, and there was 30 offers on 20 offers on a lot of homes, and things were going above asking. And and that's where I feel like because we were already short of demand, and then demand stopped for those couple months, and it's just crazy how little of a time frame can impact something, and that's where from last June till now, the amount of inventory being built out has been reduced nationwide. Nationwide, we're underbuilt. In Utah, we were at 1,55,000 homes short of demand and support. And then now it's probably a lot less than that because of what's transpired, but there's still a lack. And that's where I feel like, prices have come down some, but I think overall, thinking long term, the projections here to 2050 are insane. And I think
obviously it's like anything else. Certain areas will get hit harder than others, right? It just depends on the area that you live, and depends on, crime rate, depends on growth rate, depends on, like small, quaint southern Utah with all of its beauty. People want to live here, right? Like, and
during COVID, I always said St. George checks all the boxes for a post-COVID life. Outside, outside, you say there's not much to do at night, but as far as like your outdoors, sunshine, health, very little crime. There is crime, but comparatively, the lifestyle here,
to that.
I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
And now you do in different ways.
Yeah.
Whatever. But anyway, so.
Yeah, no, it's something that I worry about, but at the exact same time, like, that's life. Right. Like, people worry about ups and downs and this. Like, guess what? Everybody's going to probably experience like a blip in terms of something going down. Yeah. If you live long enough, if you're in business long enough, you're an employee like, it doesn't matter. Like, even real estate, for instance, right? Like, how many people when the market's good become a real estate agent in order to try to make, a bunch of money, or get in the mortgage game in order to try to make a bunch of money, and then it starts to slow down, and then they panic. Mm-hmm. Like, is this your career? Is this something that you plan on doing forever? And if it is, or a long enough period of time, then why are you worried about 2 years or a year or 3 years? Like, play the long game or don't play the game, right? And that's really what it comes down to. It's not, there's no get rich quick that happens. Yes, you can make a lot of money in a short period of time, but you have to actually make a decent amount of money for a long period of time in order to get rich. So can you come up real quick in a year or two in some of these industries when things are hot? Yes. But the question is, can you sustain it? You know, and you should utilize the money when the money's there and you're making a bunch in order to insulate yourself from the low times, because the low times will come, right? And when low times are there, you utilize the money that you made when it was high to survive, and then you get to ride the ride, but you play, you know, the middle ground in terms of lifestyle, right? So when you're making money, you stack cash. When you're not making money, you've got cash stacked, and then you know, as long as you play the game right, like it's an awesome game to play. Whether you're an agent or in the mortgage or in title, right? Like at the end of the day, there will be bumps, there will be bruises, there will be ups, there will be downs. When there's ups, make sure that you're preparing for the downs. And when there's downs, just know that the up is just right around the corner. It just is what it is. Just like there's night, just like that there's day, right? Like the sun comes up, then it goes down, then it comes up. Like that's just the waves of business. And so I think a lot of people have the wrong mindset when it comes to stuff like that.
And that goes back to the instant gratification comment, because everyone's just looking right. A lot of people are looking right in front of
their pockets today.
They're looking what can make me money now versus and what can I get now. It's so, you know, our phones, everything is geared toward all the subscriptions.
It's called the microwavable society, right? Like instead of cooking dinner, just throw it in the microwave and it's boop, boop, boop. You know, 90 seconds later, you got dinner, right? And that's Amazon. Kind of what it is.
I mean, there's people now in big cities that push Amazon purchase, and 2 hours later,
they have it at their doorstep.
It's at their doorstep. Groceries, I mean, everything. And so it just breeds us to think about the now. And so that's why it's so advantageous to be thinking about long-term, because you can make decisions a lot better if you're thinking long-term than thinking right in front of you.
Not only make decisions better, but also, you know, have a little bit less anxiety, stress, or worry, because you're playing the long game, and you know, in the long game, there will be the ups and downs, you know, so
for sure.
Anywho, dude, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
If people want to get title work, obviously they want to go to Eagle Gate Title in Southern Utah, or in Utah in general. It sounds like
working on some other states right now too.
How do they connect with you if they want to connect with you? What's the best way to do it?
I'm on YouTube is where I host all my videos, and I've got Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, just McCrae Hepler.
What's your OnlyFans channel?
Don't have one.
What?
Unfortunately, no.
You do.
I do hear people make a lot of money there.
I've heard that too, dude. And I think that you could do quite well, dude. You've been practicing on camera for 6 years now. I think you can do amazing things in any area that you want to do amazing things. So, no, man, I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
Guys, hit him up if you need title work, or if you just want to know what the hell's going on in Southern Utah. Follow the man. Other than that, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Keep kicking ass. We'll see you guys next week.